Welcome to Across the Pitch. We're the soccer show for people who think Los Zorros was a bad TV show from the 1950s.
What the hell, man? I've got nothing. I have no idea what you're talking about, folks.
Okay, well, you're gonna really enjoy this. So there was this television show in the 1950s, and it was this odd character. He was named Zorro. He wore
Zorro.
a cape and a mask and rode around on a horse and had this like fencing sword that he would make the Z with.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the Los Zorros that we're going to be talking about are the Fresno Foxes, Fresno FC Foxes. One of their nicknames is Los Zorros, and unfortunately, last Saturday's events dictate that we do have to probably talk about them a little bit tonight.
Right. Yes. I suppose you're right. Yes. So
Well, what else is
more
on
than
tonight's show?
one. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to pass that on because we're all going a bit loony here. It might be the weather. She's electric out there. It might be the cigarettes and alcohol. It could well be the weight of expectation bearing down upon us like some sort of, I don't know, wonder wall or something. Our audience could expect us to be here now. Otherwise, I look back in anger if we slide away. Some might say we're here just to talk tonight, but we're going to roll with it. We're here with another edition of Across the Pitch. Whatever.
As he faced the sun, he cast no shadow.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
I did too.
How many Oasis references did I get in there? Do you know how many that was? I think I had 1, 2.
I think you had every song on the album except Cast No Shadow. I was trying to drop whichever one you just did there. And that's, of course, the famous What's the Story Morning Glory from 1994, and I'm Casey Kasem.
See, I know that now. There is a reason why Oasis is tenuously linked to what we're about to talk about, isn't it?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Hello, my name is Phil Kennedy, and welcome to an extra special episode. Extra special episode. Now, that's something that I've said just about every time that we've had a guest on since we started the show, and I always say that because I do believe that no matter who the guest is, no matter any time that we have a guest on the show, that's always an extra special episode because somebody has taken their time out of their day to come and talk football with us. And, that, of course, goes all the way back to our very second episode when Scott Brown came on the show back in November of 2018. And looking back at episode 2, and this is now going to be episode 99, and what a journey it's been. Certainly when I, in the summer of 2018, suggested to my brother from down under, Arran Ayers, that we would start a football soccer podcast. I don't know that he thought we would ever get to 9 episodes, much less 99. But to kind of go back to what I was saying, to start off with and tell you a little bit about this extra special episode. With 100 episodes approaching, probably about a month ago, we kind of decided that for episode number 100, we needed to do something extra special, and we were going to kind of try to get a whole bunch of past guests on, and all 5 of the regular hosts onto the show at one time, and do kind of a big Boppo party episode. And then we kind of got into this doing an episode a day during the quarantine thing, and 100 started coming up a lot faster than we had expected, and it just kind of came down to, okay, we're going to have to either interrupt the episode a day, put together the big 100th, or just kind of do something else. And we decided, it's really not worth interrupting the episode a day that we have going. And then I did have something else planned, which basically is what this is so over the course of the past a year and a half, a little more than that now, since we started the show, there have been a handful of times when we recorded something. And for whatever reason, time constraints, family came over for the holidays kind of thing. We just didn't get the episode out. And it's only happened a couple of times, but it's only happened a handful of times. But I've always kind of regretted that certain things did never get published. And so I always kind of wanted to at some point do bands will do a lost albums record, and I kind of thought that this would be our lost albums record, if you will, and I wanted to have it be episode 99, and it kind of be in tribute to John Lennon and his famous compilation Revolution #9. And then there was some talk this week where it was going to be episode 100 was going to be this one. And then I said, you know what, the way things are shaking out, I want to stick with number 99. So this is going to be our 100th anniversary episode is actually going to be episode 99. And episode 100 will still be a special episode because it will have a guest. And as I stated earlier, every episode with a guest is an extra special episode. But with this 99th episode, we are going to take a look back and reminisce about some of the things that have happened over the first 98 episodes, plus some footage from these ones that were lost. Now, that opening that you just heard was actually Arran Air's famous kind of underground and unreleased thing, because a few people had heard that this existed, but this is the first time it was ever made public. That's Arran's famous Oasis show opener, now put live for the first time. And Arran, he's become famous for quite a few catchphrases. I think "We digress" is probably his signature phrase, but of course, "On tonight's show" and "But first," the brother from down under. Is kind of a king of catchphrases, and that Oasis opener you just heard was some of his best work, and I always regretted that we never got that out. So that's out. Another thing that I regretted is that, like I said, this is 99 episodes in, and certainly for a podcast, 99 episodes is a lot. I was mentioning the other day that the amount of hours worth of podcasts we have now is probably about equivalent to trying to sit down and listen to all of the Rolling Stones studio albums. We probably 99 episodes is probably longer than that at this point. So if anybody has been listening to the beginning and listened to all of them or most of them, that is just a real commitment, and we are just beyond honored to anybody that's made that kind of a commitment and is still here with us 2 years later. And like I mentioned, one of the things that I've always regretted, other than not getting Arran's Oasis opener in, is back last December and November, we kind of got a little bit busy, and I didn't get a lot of episodes out with the holidays and things like that. And during that time is the only time that we ever actually recorded with a guest, and then didn't end up getting the episode released, right away. That episode actually is with someone who I know has listened to the show from the very beginning and is one of our long-term fans. Also a good friend of Aaron Ayers, and that is Matt McClennan, who has just supported the show from he's from Australia, so he's supported the show from down under since day one, and Matt recorded with us earlier this winter, and things just happened where we never ended up getting the episode out, and I definitely felt bad about that, and I let Matt know that we didn't get it out right away, but I promise you. Your time was not wasted, and we will get this out. So this next little segment we're going to do here, we're going to have Matt McClennan joins Aaron and me to talk about his favorite club, Liverpool FC, a little bit of Australian rugby, and he's just an all-around good guy, and thank you so much for supporting the show, Matt. So without further ado, let's bring in Aaron and Matt and hear some of that lost footage from December. Good evening and welcome to Across the Pitch. We're the soccer show for people who think Virgil van Dijk played the chimney sweep at Mary Poppins.
I'm dead. Does anyone? I don't think there's any. Oh, what's that one?
Now, of course, it was Dick Van Dyke who played the chimney sweep in Mary Poppins. Virgil van Dijk is a guy who I'm sure will be coming up today, as we have a very special guest coming to us from down under today.
Yes.
Aaron's good friend and a super fan of the show. We'd like to welcome Matt McClennan to the show, who is joining me and Aaron today. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks very much, Phil. I'm dying to get involved. It's been great listening all the way from across the seas down here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this little Sunday sit down because you are an across the pitch super fan and you are a football fan as well, and all round okay guy. There you go.
Yeah, just okay.
Yes, you did get a mention the other week, didn't you? That was funny. Mate, yes, that's right. Accrington.
And provider of the Accrington Stanley voiceover from a few weeks back as well. Accrington?
Yeah, that's right. You had the Accrington. I think it was episode 47, maybe. That
sounds about right.
You provided us with an Accrington voiceover, and we just want to thank you because you have been listening with us here since the start of the show, and you of course follow football all around the world, and of course our opener included Virgil van Dijk because you are a fan of Liverpool in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's it.
Also, we posted a very interesting logo out, which is another of your favorite teams, which is a rugby team in Australia, the Canberra Raiders. So we're going to talk about all kinds of different shaped balls tonight. Let's start off by why don't you tell us a little bit about where your love of football came from, being originally from Australia, like Aaron, or you're actually in Australia now also, but with it not being as popular as rugby is over in Australia, what caused you to get into football or soccer, as you also call it down under? Where did your love start with the sport?
Playing it when I was a kid, much like I remember Arran saying a few weeks ago, his love of football. Aaron, you played as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I loved it. It was miserable standing out in the middle of those fields up there in Armidale in the middle of winter and not really knowing what I was doing. Yeah. But
yeah, well, no, I loved playing, and I used to play with my brother in the backyard as well. He was a much better footballer than me, but anyway, you can't have it all.
Better bloke all round. We share a birthday, me and your brother Simon. So, hey, Simon, how you doing, mate? But he also
and Stephen Gerrard.
Stephen Gerrard, yes,
that's right. I don't remember when I first played. I was only a little kid, but I enjoyed watching it as well. But it was a bit like in Australia, we didn't get much of a roundup show back then. We certainly didn't get it to the extent we have today. So we only got, I think you might remember, Aaron, was it like one show of a Saturday afternoon or something? Just the premiership?
You know, yeah, and I don't think it was even that. Like when I was going through college or university, I think that they had an hour show on SBS every Sunday or something like that.
Something like that.
And and it was that, or maybe it was even a Tuesday or something really odd after all the games have been played, and that was really the only, sort of EFL information. Sorry, EFL. What am I talking about? EPL information you get throughout the week, and it was just pretty difficult to follow your favourite teams.
Yeah, especially if you weren't following a Premier League team.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But so, I mean, out of all of that, like the basic media blackout, which has completely changed now, of course, you can see every game if you're willing to pay for it. You know what I'm talking about. But we won't go into our love of Fox or the opposite of whatever that might be. You can go and watch every game here, but before that, I mean, how did you land on Liverpool? What happened there, man?
I just remember I certainly can't be accused of being a glory supporter with all the title drought that we've had over the last 30 years. I remember for some reason I really like Robbie Fowler from watching this show. From watching the show we were talking about. Yeah, so I picked Fowler, and I think my brother liked Beckham, the dickhead. Yeah.
Why would you do that? That's a glory supporter. He's gone down in my estimations. Fuck you, Simon.
Don't worry. He supports Cronulla, Aaron, so it even itself out.
Now, we'll hear a bit more of that episode with Matt McClennan later, but now I thought it was a good time for us to talk a little bit about how the show has evolved. And now, certainly, one of the things that when we first started the show is that I had suggested to Arran that at the core, we were going to be a show about Phoenix Rising and Accrington Stanley and kind of build out from there. And, when I said that I thought we were going to have a show about Accrington Stanley and Phoenix Rising, he kind of asked me how drunk I was at that time. But that was also around the time that I said that one of our bucket list goals would be to have Andy Holt, the chairman of Accrington Stanley, on the show. Again, Arran kind of said, how drunk are you? But very early on in our show's life, we did achieve that bucket list goal. It was in May of 2018, so really just within 6 months that happened. But, ultimately the show, while it has remained at its core a show about Accrington Stanley and Phoenix Rising, it really has evolved in so many other ways. And one of those ways that I'm most reminded by is what was kind of my signature at the start was the opening jokes that we do at the beginning of the shows. And certainly the opening jokes are something that the first one that we ever did the first episode was that we're the soccer show for people who think Mbappe was a bad song from the 90s. And now, of course, that'd be the Bop song by Hanson and Mbappe, the French superstar striker that we were talking about there. But basically what the joke was, and of course, while the show itself started back in 2018, it really all goes back to around 2013, which is when I first met Arran, and it's because in 2013 when I first met Arran, he was the first kind of person that I ever became close friends with that had actually lived in England and followed the game then. And boy, in 2013 was I a mess. I would say something to Arran, and his standard response was something along the lines of, "No, that's not how football works, mate." And so, as the years went on, we finally got the Phoenix Rising here, and I started going to some games and getting a little bit better understanding of how football works, and that's what kind of led us up to eventually starting the show. But, certainly at the point that we started across the pitch, by no means was I any kind of an expert. I mean, I could, tell you what was going on with Phoenix Rising and Arsenal, because those are kind of the teams that I followed. And then, I was starting to learn more and more about Accrington at that point. But otherwise, I was a pretty blank canvas when we first started the show. And my joke was kind of that it seemed like there were a lot of soccer words and things that could easily be confused with things in pop culture. And I think some of my favorites, I know we had Crystal Palace as a Las Vegas casino and different things like that. And I used to come up with one of these for every single episode, and regardless of whether it was an interview or not, and recently we kind of got away from doing about the interviews. And one of the things is in one of our last flagship episodes, I actually changed things up a bit, where I said that we're the show for people who think the Quarantine is a team from Eastern Europe, which of course is this wouldn't be a 99th episode. We're talking about Gurbanov and Karabakh FC, the obligatory mention right there. But basically, what I was kind of getting at there is the show and certainly the credibility of bringing somebody like Darren Woodhead, author of 50 Years of Accrington Stanley and several other books, and a guy like Tony Robinson, who born and raised in Accrington, and Matt Robards, who joined Arran and I is episode 10. I mean, we have now a total of 5 co-hosts, and Matt, he is just one of the most knowledgeable people in terms of he doesn't just follow the English leagues or the MLS and USL. I mean, he can tell you what's going on in Europe. He can tell you with the German league, the French league, the Spanish league. I mean, we don't call the guy Mr. Wizard for nothing. I mean, Matt is just incredibly knowledgeable. And when he joined Arran and I in episode 10, it really did help give the show instant credibility in terms of, the knowledge that he brought to the table. And the show has just evolved. And the thing is that when Arran and I first started, we kind of joked around that we thought, well, maybe a few people in England might listen to us just to kind of make fun of our accents type of thing. But the show really has evolved into something that's not a show for people that are casual soccer fans trying to learn the game anymore, but something that's actually being respected by folks who are truly knowledgeable about football. And certainly with the five of us, we just couldn't be more honored when we hear something like that the players at Accrington Stanley listen to the show, or Coach Rick Schatz of the Phoenix Rising mentioned to me that he listened to the show, and that's just the kind of thing that we never thought we'd accomplish in 10 years, much less a year and a half would be to have actual members of the organization listening to us and caring about what we have to say. But with Across the Pitch, one of the things that we've always been about is not just only being a show that's about football, but a show that's also about entertainment. That's why we featured music on the show from time to time. And you may have noticed at the intro today that The intro ran longer than normal. That, of course, is the glides one time, which is the intro and outro music that we use on every single show. The cool thing is that the glides have actually, at Wham Stadium, they have a fan-curated playlist that's played before each game, and the folks at Accrington Stanley have been gracious enough to actually play the glides at the Wham Stadium several times, one time being one of those. Most recently, it was when Rotherham visited the Wham Stadium that the following song that I'm about to play right now was played, and that is Go, 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 and just really listen to the lyrics of this song, because I feel like when you listen to the lyrics of this song and you think about Accrington Stanley and the story of the club, that it's just really a fitting soundtrack, if you will. So here is Go, Go, Go by the Glides. And that was Go, Go, Go by the Glides. And this is a perfect time for us to announce our music-related sponsor for today's Rarities soundtrack episode. And a bit of a story behind this is the Glides when they toured the West Coast a few years ago. They built up a bit of a following in southwestern Oregon, particularly in the Klamath Falls area. And recently, I've made a new friend on Twitter who is actually she has a radio show up in the southwestern Oregon area, and she's sponsoring today's episode, and that is Safid Thitwick of the Melting Space Dreams Select Sounds for Sophisticated Hearing radio show every Monday from 8 p.m. until midnight. That's in Pacific time, and that's on 105.7 KXCJ in Oregon, and you can hear that on kxcj.org. You can stream that live online, and if you're into to hearing Weezer rarities, this is the show for you. Or any of that kind of music that people like me who went to high school in the 90s kind of jam out to that kind of stuff. So thank you for sponsoring the show tonight. And then moving forward, we're going to have some footage here from the only other episode that we ever recorded with a guest that wasn't released. And this one is a little bit different situation, as when we started the show, one of the things that we wanted to do was explain soccer or football in England, and the ins and outs of it to American fans. And what we didn't expect was that we would actually have to explain the ins and outs of how the MLS and USL, and specifically the fact that winning the league doesn't win you the championship, and there's still a single elimination playoffs after that. So what I did was I sat down with Peter Leatham, who is, of course, the chairman of the Accrington Stanley Supporters Club. And last season, we were expecting the Phoenix Rising to make a deep run into the USL Championship playoffs. I sat down with Peter and kind of gave him an explanation of how the USL playoffs work. Before we ever got the episode out, Phoenix Rising got upset and eliminated, and kind of rendered that episode not one that we were thinking anybody would want to listen to in our Phoenix Rising centric fan base. But now that the scars of that upset loss have healed a little bit, and the information is still important, and of course there really have been few people that have been more important to our show than Peter. So very happy that this explanation where Peter and I talk about how the USL Championship works. Here's a clip from that. We kind of came up with an idea for this special episode because, of course, in England or just about any other football league in the world, whoever gets the most points during the season is the champion of the league. But over here in the U.S., of course, us Americans, we have to be weird about everything. And we do something called the playoffs, and I thought that it would be great if Peter could, kind of ask us some questions that he has from an English fan standpoint about the American football playoffs, and kind of help put that into perspective. So thank you for joining today, Peter. How you doing?
Yeah, it's absolute pleasure, Phil. Absolute pleasure. I've got the first question for you. In the other week, I watched the Across the Pitch Facebook video, which showed
the penalty shootout.
Well, no, I watched Phoenix Rising getting beat by somebody. I think it was about 3 or 4-1 in a playoff game, and I naively thought, well, that's it. Phoenix Rising have now lost in the playoffs, and that is the end of the story. Anyway, this weekend we then had the video of Phoenix Rising beating somebody 8-7 in a penalty shooter, and I thought, how's that come to pass? So obviously, my understanding of the USL playoff process is fairly vacant. I think it's fair to say.
Well, I would say that for just about anybody outside of the U.S., it would be a little bit different, to say the least. Yeah. Now, I believe that what you were seeing the other day in terms of the game that they lost, wasn't a playoff game. That was the second to the last game of the regular season.
Right, okay. I was getting confused in that case.
Well, where you had gotten confused is what that game determined was what was called the Four Corners Cup, which was a supporter kind of cup. So there's four states. It's Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado, where it's the only spot in the U.S. where the four states meet at the corners. So it's some weird thing that we call the four corners over here. I mean, in my opinion, they're just lines that somebody drew anyway, so I don't see why it's a big deal. But I guess it's a tourist trap for them to say, "Oh yeah, you're standing in four states at one time."
Yeah. If it's any consolation, Bill, I've actually heard of that.
Oh, okay. Well,
I've heard of that bit. I didn't realise there was then a football cup to commemorate it, though.
Well, this was actually the first year, and it's because in the USL Championship with New Mexico United joining the league this year, it was the first time that all four states had ever had a team in the league.
Okay, so what format did that take?
So what it takes is, so each team, so you have the Real Monarchs, who are Utah or Salt Lake City, Colorado Springs Switchbacks, who are from Colorado, New Mexico United, and then the Phoenix Rising from Arizona. And each team played each other twice during the season, and then so they made a separate table that only accounted for those matches. Right. And so when Real Monarchs defeated Phoenix Rising in the second to the last game of the regular season, that clinched that Four Corners Cup, which is it's a supporter-made trophy. So I mean, it's not anything official to the USL, but it's just something that they created here.
So is that something? So does that take place within the auspices of the USL, or is it something that the four clubs have just organised themselves as a sort of side event?
Matches that come towards it are USL regular season matches.
Okay. So it's something that takes place within the regular competition, but isn't an official thing as such. It just you just take those results into consideration.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we've reached a halftime of sorts in this rarities and lost clips episode, and we're going to revisit each of those three recordings that we've heard here so far throughout the show. And of course, that last clip we were talking about some of the intricacies of U.S. Soccer versus how things are done in the rest of the world. And of course, we talked about the unique Four Corners Cup competition that we have here in Phoenix, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. Just there. When we get back to that clip towards the end of the show, we will actually dive into the part where I broke down the USL playoffs themselves for Peter. However, kind of switching gears and going back to the very first thing that we listened to, this is kind of the point of the show where I wanted to talk about U.S. soccer and some of the intricacies that are not so much having to do with the playoff system, but more the uniqueness of how young of a sport that that association football or soccer really is here in the United States. Now, of course, there was some NASL in the 1970s and 80s, but then widely until 1994, there was no professional soccer whatsoever in the United States. The MLS now is about 25 years old, and the USL is roughly about 10 years old, 5 years old in its current format. And certainly one of the kinds of growing pains that you go through is, and just to give an idea of how quickly things have changed, the episode that we started with at the beginning of the show and that we're about to actually revisit now was recorded at the end of September 2019. So just about 6 months ago exactly, in fact. And the team that we referenced, the Fresno Foxes, no longer exist. They went out of business at the off season. So I mean, this was a playoff team, the team that actually ended Phoenix Rising's record 20-game winning streak, one of the best teams in the league. They're gone off the face of the earth, and that's just kind of how things go around here, unfortunately, with teams coming and going. And, hopefully as the game becomes more popular and more money into it, we won't see so much of that in the future. However, other types of growing pains that are certainly unique to the U.S., specifically, I think that, you kind of complain about refereeing everywhere, and that's one of our favorite things to complain about, but whose isn't? The thing that we like to complain about a lot over here that you would certainly never run into in England is teams that actually play their games in stadiums or on pitches, fields that were designed for baseball. And baseball, if you don't know, has a dirt infield that actually has to be sodded over to be able to play soccer on it. And Fresno was one of those teams that did play in a baseball stadium last season. And after Phoenix Rising were beaten on said baseball pitch, let's just say that Matt, Arran, and I had a few things to say about that.
Yeah, it was a rough game. I think Fresno set up really well against us. The pitch was absolutely atrocious. That can't be an excuse because they're playing on it too. But listen, USL, do something about this. If they're going to play on baseball pitches, at least have some sort of standard, because it was awful.
There was on the right-hand side, as you look at it on the TV, about probably, I'm going to guess about 25, 30 yards out, there was a huge bump in the field. Every time the ball went over that, the ball bounced up, and it was awful passing the ball down that side of the field.
That's where the baseball infield is sodded over.
But that's no excuse, though. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there's home ground advantage, but that's miserable.
It's not bad. I'm just explaining what it was.
So, I mean, but credit to Fresno. They came out very well set up. They had a plan going forward. They had a plan to, playing defensively, sitting in that block, and they did a good job. They executed. And to be honest, we were just unlucky. I mean, that's what it comes down to. For the second Fresno goal, absolutely horrible decision by the referee to call a penalty. Mustafa Dumbuya got 100% of that ball, not even close to being a penalty in any sense of the word.
Oh, boy. Soccer on a baseball field. I say that is just about as popular as those MK Dons at Forest Green half and half scarves. Now, speaking of apparel, one piece of apparel that is apparently more popular than we've realized is our shirts. Recently, we have come out with the Across the Pitch t-shirts. Now, unfortunately, the t-shirts right now are currently on hold because the manufacturing is shut down due to the coronavirus situation. However, when we were on Amazon taking a look the other day, it came to our attention that our shirts have actually been bootlegged and are being sold by non-authorized dealers. And, honestly, we're not quite sure whether to be offended or honored that our merch is being bootlegged. That being said, if you do want to purchase an Across the Pitch shirt, once the manufacturing gets going again, be sure to purchase it from Shirts and Giggles, as that is our only authorized dealer of shirts. And actually, not only are they our only authorized dealer of shirts, but they are our other sponsor for tonight's episode. So let's roll one more sponsor message here. This one is for Alex with Shirts and Giggles, who is our t-shirt partner. Today's is sponsored by Shirts and Giggles, direct-to-garment printing. Direct-to-garment is the future of t-shirts. We design t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies custom-made to order with vivid detail. Find us on Amazon.com or Facebook at T-Shirts and Giggles. One of the things that we're most proud of with Across the Pitch is that we've managed to become a truly global show. So far, we've been streamed in 65 different countries as of the recording of this show. Not only that, but with Matt McClennan joining us from the Australian continent, we have now had guests on the show from 5 different continents, including, of course, North America and Europe, plus Chris Cortez, who, of course, spoke with us from Asia while he was in Thailand, our friend Abdoulaye Subaru in Ghana, who has also spoken to us from Africa, and, of course, Matt here tonight makes 5 different continents that we've had guests on the show from. And we just look to continue to increase our scope globally. And the other thing is, with our hosts, we are an eclectic bunch. Myself, I'm a native of Phoenix, Arizona, which is strange enough in itself in this town where, it seemed like everybody moved from someplace else. Matt is also an American from Texas originally and then moved to Arizona. Our brother from down under, Arran Ayers, is originally from Australia. He's also lived in England and now lives here in Phoenix, like Matt and myself. And then our other host, Darren Woodhead, actually lives in and is from Accrington, a native of, like I mentioned earlier, wrote the 50 Years of Accrington Stanley book. Tony Robinson, he actually now resides in Toronto, Canada. He's actually from Accrington, actually grew up on Stanley Street. And then, of course, as I mentioned, our friend Abdoulaye Subaru runs our partner site, which is Ghana Football News. So we actually have people that are a part of our show and part of our staff and appearing on the podcasts or working on our partner sites in 4 different countries, 3 different continents, and we just hope to continue to see that grow. So now let's get back to another clip from our recording with Matt. And as we mentioned earlier, Matt is a Liverpool supporter, but who really wants to hear about that? Because that's not the type of show we are. You can go hear about Liverpool anywhere. Like Arran, even though he is an Australian, Matt has spent some time living in England. However, unlike Arran, who lived in London, Matt spent his time in Sheffield, where he actually attended an impressive number of Sheffield Wednesday matches, and we had a chance to chat with him about just that. All right, so Matt, you're originally from Australia, and you're in Australia now, but in between that time, you did spend a few years in England, and when you were there, you were in the Sheffield area. did you attend any games while you were there in Sheffield, or were there any of the Sheffield clubs that you supported during your time there?
Yeah, Phil, I went to about 20 Sheffield Wednesday matches. I lived around the corner from Hillsborough, the Hillsborough Stadium, so I could walk to the ground in about 10 minutes. And yeah, I went to 12 before I saw the Blues one, actually.
And the Blues are... Who are the Blues?
No, before I saw them lose one.
Oh, you saw them lose one?
Yeah,
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Before I saw them get defeated. Oh,
so you had you're a bit of the golden touch there for them,
I did, yeah. I was tweeting Carlos Carvalho, the coach, going, get me on the team bus, you know.
How did that go?
It barely ever rains there, though, right?
Pardon?
Sheffield. You aren't kidding, aren't you? Yeah, it rains there. It's England, for God's sake.
It rains quite a bit, yeah.
I just know every time I see Sheffield on TV, it's always pouring rain.
Yeah. Have you seen the full Monty? Phil, have you seen the full Monty? That's the one you want to watch.
The full film. Monty?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those English movies based in Sheffield. You know, where they did the whole striptease to raise some money. Those guys out of work.
Did they make a Star Wars version?
Oh, I don't think so.
I probably haven't seen it. I probably haven't seen it.
A different kind of horses with them, anyway.
Exactly. Yes. They had their sabers out.
Oh, one of those kind of.
Yes. So it was Sheffield Wednesday. Was your team in Sheffield,
right? The Owls, exactly. Yeah.
The Owls, right. Can you, this is not on the show sheet, so forgive me if you don't know, but we'll try anyway. Can you confirm or deny the fact that they started off as a team of butchers?
Yes, I'm not sure about that one, Aaron. I know they started out as a cricket team.
Oh, really?
Apparently, yeah. Apparently. I'm not sure about that butchers. I'm not sure about that butchers one.
I know they started off they were the Blades first, and then Sheffield United stole that nickname of sorts, and then they became the Owls because they moved into Owlin Stadium.
Owlerton, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Oh wow, there you go.
Yeah. We won't mention the Blades, though. They're bastards.
All right. Well, this section here might run a little bit long because this section is the thank you section. And first of all, if you're still listening, thank you, because I know that we're getting real close to an hour into this now. And if you're still listening to us, or you've ever listened to the show for even one episode, thank you. Now, the last segment in here, we will go to another clip of my conversation with Peter Leatham and the USL playoff and how that works. But before we, and that certainly is going to be an ideal section and person to end off with, because other than the people that are actually part of the making of the show on a day-to-day basis, it's hard to think that anybody has been more important to across the pitch than Peter Leatham. Peter, not only has he just done anything and everything and gone over and above to help us with founding the Accrington Stanley Supporters Club of North America, he also goes out of his way to schedule almost all of the active player interviews with Accrington Stanley players that we have on the show. But before we do that, I kind of want to first. I'm going to start off by going over each of the people who are on the show as my co-hosts and co-contributors, and then I'm going to also just kind of thank every guest who's ever been on the show. Let me kind of go back to my my co-host, and I'm going to go kind of in order of how long people have been on the show. And of course, how could I start with anybody else but my brother from down under? Arran Ayers, who I've actually been good friends with for close to 7 years now. He is kind of my soccer buddy for as long as I've had a soccer buddy. Attended my first Rising game with Arran, and like I said, when I first came up with the idea of a football soccer podcast, he went along with it in spite of whatever doubts he had, and wow, what a ride that it has been. And Arran just brings so much to the show because, like I mentioned, he's lived in England, he's lived in London, he's been to a North London derby before, and he is just such a talented guy in terms of like the show opener that he started with the Oasis, and he's just a very artistic guy. I might be biased here, but I believe the logo that he drew and created himself is the best logo. I will put it up against the logo of any other soccer podcast out there. I mean, we're getting bootlegged on it. Just a fantastic job by Arran on the logo, and there's nobody else I would have rather started the show with, and to continue to have him on our team as we go forward, and hundreds more episodes to come. And thank you, Arran, and I just look forward to getting back out and in that supporter section at the South End and screaming our heads off and drinking some dollar beers at the Rising games. The next guy to join the show was, of course, Matt Robards. And Matt, man, you are just the most knowledgeable soccer guy that I know. And there's a lot of people that maybe they know a lot about one team, but when it comes to just being a maven of world soccer, that I'm not even sure if you like the nickname Mr. Wizard I gave you or not, but it certainly fits. Because, man, you just step up to the plate. It doesn't matter what topic we're talking about. You're going to come in with just an intelligent question that's some angle that it's not going to be the average cookie cutter question. You played the game up to the college level, so you understand the tactics, the techniques, what the coaches, the players on the pitch are thinking. And you were kind of our first super fan, I guess, because I think as I posted, it might have been like our third or fourth episode in one of the Phoenix Rising groups, and you started kind of talking with me and Arran after that, and within about a week, we invited you on to make a guest appearance, and you just kind of knocked it out of the park, and we said, okay, this guy needs to be on every show now, and I just couldn't ask for a better guy to have on the team than Matt Robards, and I can't wait to keep doing more episodes and hanging out with you at the Rising games, and great things to come. Now, once we started to kind of expand our horizons outside of Phoenix, it came to be one day I saw about this new book that was coming out called 50 Years of Accrington Stanley, and I also came across a Facebook group called Accrington Stanley Memories. And it turned out that both the author of the book and the guy that ran the Facebook group were one and the same. That, of course, would be Darren Woodhead. And with Darren, I said, okay, well, this is the guy that I need to get on the show that's going to know Accrington more than anybody. And I got Darren on, and we started kind of doing some things to promote the book, and it kind of hit it off. And before you knew it, Darren became became part of the team, and just talk about giving our show credibility. We're just three American guys, or three guys living in America. One of them an Australian guy, but then to have a published author and a guy that season ticket holder at Accrington Stanley join and be part of the team. Well, that just kind of helped us take the show to the next level. And then, Darren started bringing in some guests for Accrington Stanley legends that he had gotten to know just over the years from writing his books or through his group and whatnot, and that really helped take the show to the next level when Darren got on board. We're actually getting ready to launch a brand new website for Accrington Stanley Memories. So we have the North American Supporters Club website now, which is industryandprudenceconquer.com. That's all of our Accrington Stanley North America stuff. That site is also going to eventually, as it grows, have current Accrington Stanley news on it. The new website that we're getting ready to launch will be Darren's website, AccringtonStanleyMemories.com. AccringtonStanleyMemories.com will have any of the legends interviews that we do with the Accrington Stanley retired players, plus any of the types of things that you see in his Facebook group. So I'm really, really excited about the future of everything that Darren is going to be doing with the Accrington Stanley Memories and the Legends interviews we're going to do on the show. Now, the fifth and final guy, we've saved, certainly not the least for last, because this guy has really just come in and kicked some butt, and that is Tony Robinson, the Canadian Accringtonian. Now, Tony, he's another guy who kind of started out as a super fan of the show and just one of these guys that was listening to all of our episodes and interacting with us on social media and things like that. And then I had Tony on a few months ago to make a guest appearance on the show, and we just kind of hit it off and had such good chemistry that I invited him to, maybe kind of do some co-hosting if the other guys, couldn't make a recording or whatnot. And Tony has just come in, and he now does most of the current player interviews that we do with Accrington Stanley. Tony and I are usually the ones doing those, and the level of research that he does and his level of professionality and knowledge of Accrington, and the fact that, once again, this is a guy, he lives in Canada now, but he actually was born in Accrington. He actually lived on Stanley Street. You couldn't make this kind of stuff up for this team to come together of, like you said, 5 people from, living in different parts of the world, really, that all, share this love of this beautiful game and Accrington Stanley, and it has just been amazing. And there are a couple of people that definitely deserve a special mention. Abdullah Subaru, he kind of reached out to me last year. It was during last Phoenix Rising season when I posted a video of a Solomon Asante goal, and of course he follows Asante because he follows all the players from Ghana, and then I ended up having him on the show, and man, this guy is just a book of knowledge. He can tell you every player anywhere in the world who's from Ghana, what team they play on. This guy is the Mr. Wizard of Ghana. He decided to kind of start his own website, and I saw he was just using WordPress.com, and I said, well, hey, let's get you a real website. So we got GhanaFootballNews.com fired up. Since then, he's come on the show a couple times. We interviewed Jerome Apaku together. He's now doing a radio show in the Upper West region of Ghana. Recently, nominated for an award. I mean, he is just kicking some butt up there. And it's just great that we've actually been able to take and now put a presence in Africa. The other thing is now the Accrington Stanley Supporters Club of Ghana. So now we actually have 2 different Accrington Stanley Supporters Clubs that we've started, one in North America, one in Ghana. A third one on the way. Matt McClennan, who you just heard from, is getting ready to get an Accrington Stanley Supporters Club fired up in Australia. Peter Leatham is the guy helping us put all of this together. So, across the pitch, Accrington Stanley, we're taking over the world here. Another guy I have to mention is Ross Davenport. Ross Davenport, if you haven't heard the rugby, then you have to check that out. When Ross made his first appearance on the show with us, and he is a commentator for Greenville Triumph, among a million other different sports that he commentates on. He's a golf coach, jack of all trades, and he is a guy who is going to be making more appearances on the show and be a bigger part of things as things go on. He's also going to be our USL League One guy once those seasons get going again. So Ross is just a great guy, and he's going to be kind of the 6th host as things go forward here. Now, we will go to our last clip with Peter Leatham, finish out with the glides. It's good to be a glide, and thank you all for joining us tonight. The playoff tournament, that is a single elimination. So the video that you watched of the penalty shootout the other day, that was the first round proper game in the playoffs.
So to qualify for the playoffs, what position do you have to finish in the leagues?
In the USL Championship right now, there's 17. I think there's 17 teams in the Eastern Conference and 18 in the Western Conference, something around there. And then the top 6 teams in each conference qualify for the first round proper automatically. The teams that finish 6. Go ahead.
So I was going to ask, does that mean that the 6 in the East play the 6 in the West, or is it the 6 in the East play amongst themselves and then play the winners in the West, or do they play each other as they go along?
Correct. So when the playoffs start, you have an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference, and then that top 6 teams in each conference, they make the playoffs, but they play amongst themselves until that final. The final game ends up being the team that won the Eastern Conference against the team that won the Western Conference.
Okay, so you got 6 teams from each division.
Not quite, because there's actually 10 teams in each that start, so that the top 6 in each division qualify for the first round proper. And then teams from 7 through 10 have to play in a play-in round. So 7 plays 10 and 8 plays 9.
Yeah. You're changing the rules now, aren't you?
What's that?
I said you're changing the rules now, aren't you?
well. So the 7th through 10th place in each team have to play a play-in round, and then the winners of those games, they get first round proper. So there's ultimately 8 teams. Each.
I was just wondering how you were going to make a competition out of 6, but now you got to 8. It makes more sense.
Yeah, so then you start with 8 in the first round proper. And so what you saw with the Phoenix Rising is they were actually ranked first. So then they ended up playing the Austin Bold, who were the winner of the 8 versus 9 playoff game.
Okay.
And that's who they were playing in the first round, was actually they were 8th in that.
So logically, the second team plays the 7th and the third team plays the 6th, etc.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I understand, and presumably that then goes through to the second round, where the winners of your first versus 9th or 10th plays the winner of the 2nd versus 7th or 6th or whatever it might be.
Yes, exactly. So now we're at the where there's 4 teams left in each conference, which are the winners of the first round proper game. Phoenix Rising, who are the 1 seed, they're playing the winner of the 4 versus 5 game, which is going to be the Real Monarchs, who is the team that beat them for the Four Corners Cup 2 weeks ago. Now they're going to have to face them again in the second round of the playoffs, which, in my opinion, this match is the real Western Conference Finals, if you will.
Did I read that Real Monarch actually won? Was it 3 or 4-1? It didn't sound that close.
It was 5-1, actually, I believe. They really took it to Orange County in the first round, and that was a little bit of a weird game because it was played at like 1 p.m. in the afternoon, which is very unusual. USL Championship games are almost always played, 7, 8 p.m. So I'm wondering if that had any kind of effect, because you know how those midweek games at weird times can throw.
Sure. Was it played at 1 p.m. because of television or something silly like that, which tends to happen a lot in the UK?
Yeah, I believe that's what it was, is that they were wanting to be able to air the games at separate times, because like that. Yeah. But even so, I mean, the Phoenix game was at 7:30, so it could have been that something else was scheduled at the park that day, or you never know. I mean, they could have had a concert that night. Who knows?
So presumably your second round game against Real Monarchs, is that this coming weekend?
Yes, that'll be this Friday night.
And is that in Phoenix again?
Yes. So Phoenix was not only the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, they were the number 1 seed in the whole league. So they will host all the way through. If they make it to the championship game, no matter who comes out of the Eastern Conference, Phoenix will still host because they have the best record of anybody.
That seems quite fair. So who would you logically expect to perhaps come through the Eastern Conference then?
Well, with the Eastern Conference, I'll tell you, the Western Conference is kind of the more offensive conference, where the defensive conference is in the East. So there's really a number of teams that could come out. Pittsburgh Riverhounds, they ended up as the number 1 seed, but Tampa Bay Rowdy, the Indianapolis 11, and then you have Louisville, who are last year's defending champions, and even Nashville. I mean, any of those teams really look good in the East. Now, I should look at some of these results here, because some of those teams have...
Join the band of Phoenix, Arizona.